Personally, I'm a really big fan of when people within cryptocurrency decide that they're going to go and congregate in one specific place, partially because it means that they leave our society and leave everyone else alone, but also because it's always just doomed to failure and typically ends up with things like Cryptoland, which was an absolutely fantastic attempt to buy an island with money they didn't own while selling NFTs for the island they don't own, and saying if everybody buys a plot of land on this thing we don't own, then we'll be able to buy the island. And then, of course, it didn't happen. I laughed about it, and they started DMCAing my videos because they were very upset. We've had other ones as well. We've had other crypto bros actually buy islands and then go and just start cutting down all the natural vegetation, uprooting the ecosystems of the animals living there, things like that, and saying that they're going to build homes for crypto bros to come live in. And it basically just looks like something out of a dystopian nightmare where everyone's living in these little see-through like modular home things, and you can buy extra modules to build like a little community. It just seems like something out of a cult, like literally out of a cult. Like, oh, you can only move here if you're a big crypto boy and bring your crypto family and all this good stuff. But here we have Bitcoin Beach. And this is apparently in El Salvador, which if you don't know, was one of the first countries, it might be one of the only ones, I don't know, who decided to start accepting Bitcoin and try to make it like their legal tender, basically. And that didn't go well at all, which we'll go through a little bit in this video. But basically what these guys are doing is making a specific area where it's all about that Bitcoin, chasing that Bitcoin bag. And to be honest, there are some things on this website where they're talking about some cool things, like they've been giving Bitcoin to the locals, teaching them how to use Bitcoin. That one I'm not so much on board with, but giving them money, cool. But obviously when you look through like Bitcoin in El Salvador, how that's been going, there's a reason this is not being adopted in any kind of way. Well, there's multiple reasons, of course, but for some reason these people believe that they're the ones to do it, and they do bring up some valid points as to why there's a problem with banking in places like El Salvador and why something like Bitcoin, not necessarily Bitcoin, I think there's too many problems with that, could actually be very useful as like a tool to go into these places and provide access to banking that isn't an absolute joke for them to use. So they give this example: current option to send money from somebody in the US, a son in the US, to send $100 to an elderly mother in El Zonte, El Salvador. Current option is to use Western Union. Son drives to Western Union office, pays $7 fee. So that's already $107. Mom has to pay to take the bus an hour away to retrieve the money. Cost to son $7 plus an hour of his time. Cost to mom $2 in bus fare and 4 hours of her time, plus the risk of traveling on bus with money. All true. New option using Bitcoin. Son uses the new Strike app linked to his US bank account to send $100 in Bitcoin over Lightning Network. Cost to son $0 and 3 minutes of his time. Cost to mom $0 and receives payment immediately directly to her phone. She can buy milk from the local store that accepts Bitcoin, even sending payment directly from a phone sitting in her house and having somebody deliver. She can also pay her electricity bill without leaving home or walk down the street and eat at the local restaurant. The $7 fee and $2 bus fare mean the transaction costs using Western Union would be 9%, and more importantly, a big waste of time and effort. Bitcoin over Lightning Network fixes this. What it doesn't fix is the fact that then all businesses have to accept it. This has to be completely seamless. They have to have the technical knowledge of how to use these things. Bitcoin has to not be incredibly volatile, which we all know it is. And on the list of problems go. Now, obviously, when looking at the actual usage of Bitcoin in El Salvador, we see that all of these problems have been quite prevalent. So basically, when they adopted Bitcoin as legal tender within the country, they were trying to essentially incentivize everybody to use it. So they launched apps where you could buy Bitcoin, trade Bitcoin, etc. They launched these Bitcoin ATMs called Athena. And they found over the course of 2 years of doing this, that usage was like a fraction of a percentage. Basically, what 60% of people were doing was signing up to the app, getting the $30 bonus that the government was essentially incentivizing people with, spending that money and then never using the app again. And 30% of people got the bonus. No, sorry, 20% of the people got the bonus from downloading the app and then never used it. So that's 81%. So basically, there's 19% of people that use the app either a short while after using the $30 they were given, or long term. The percentage of them being long term would essentially be within the single digits. So they're giving people free money to use this, and people still generally don't want to use it. In terms of businesses, the Salvadorian Chamber of Commerce found that only 14% of businesses in El Salvador had conducted Bitcoin transactions between September 2021 and July of 2022, and 3% felt that being able to use Bitcoin was valuable. 3% of businesses felt that Bitcoin was valuable. According to the Central Reserve Bank, Bitcoin was used in 1.9% of remittance payments sent to El Salvador between September 2021 and April 2022. Now, of course, this entire time, El Salvador was using their treasury funds to buy Bitcoin. They bought 2,300 Bitcoin and allegedly lost 50% of their value because they were buying in around September to January of 2021, 2022, which was all-time highs, which is, if you bought in at that point, unlucky, you probably got wrecked. Although, unfortunately, the guy in charge is basically treating this like he's on Wall Street Bets or Crypto Bro on Twitter with the rocket emojis and stuff, saying he's buying the dip. During June of 2022, he bought an additional 80 Bitcoins. The Salvadorian Minister of Finance stated that the country had not lost any money during the crash because it did not sell any of its Bitcoins, which if they did sell, because obviously you don't realize a loss on assets until you actually sell, but the current value of the assets is a big loss. So here we go. Prior to the crash, several other countries had announced plans to adopt Bitcoin as legal tender, but only the Central African Republic had done so. So basically, everyone thought this was a good idea while going was good, and then since going's not been good, everyone's been like, yeah, fuck all that, eh? To have a video here from live from Bitcoin Beach, this is why we are here. Well, watch this, 1 minute 50. Why does this sound like something I bought for £1 by texting a number in like 2003 on my Nokia? I don't even know what model it would have been back then. One of those that 3310 was it, where you could literally throw this under like a truck wheel and run over it 35 times and it'd still play Snake perfectly fine. Why does this sound like a bit tune, a ringtone? Bitcoiners. They're just replaying the same. Copyright claimed for this and lose the ad revenue off this video. I'm going to lose my mind for something sounding this bad.
And we are live from Bitcoin Beach, the Bitcoin center of the world here in El Salvador. And we are very excited to be able to showcase the amazing things that are transpiring in this country. We're going to have a number of exciting guests, some famous Bitcoiners that are traveling through, some that you've never heard of before that are just doing amazing things. There's going to be a big focus on circular economies. That's where we really want to put our focus. That's what we think is important, is how Bitcoin is changing the lives of everyday people. We also know there's a huge interest in El Salvador now. Some of you thinking of moving here.
Is there? Because from what I'm seeing, the government doesn't even, numbers wise, unless there's been a new report that's not on Wiki yet from late 2022 into 2023, which I can't believe there would be, because if it was worth more money and more people were using it before and they still struggled with adoption completely and it had actually done negative things to their, because I'll show you here how bad this is. According to BBC, the 2,300 Bitcoins purchased by the Salvadorian government had lost 50% of their value. El Salvador's economic growth rate declined during this time, and many economists predicted it had a high chance of defaulting on its debt. Really bad thing for a country to be doing. In response to these issues, the same guy who decided to buy all this Bitcoin using the country's money decreased public funding, which resulted in the reduction of water infrastructure and public services in some municipalities. So this doesn't sound like a great thing. And if a bunch of Westerners with a bunch of money want to move to El Salvador because big things are happening with Bitcoin there, I think this is certified delusion, personally. But if they go there and just give a bunch of money to the locals and then they sell that funny money and transport it into like real currency and that helps their lives, I'm all for that. But if you're moving there to basically like take over an area with your incredible amount of wealth, we've already seen why this is a bad thing in other places, like in Costa Rica, where people, digital nomads, are essentially moving to certain areas, and because they're really rich in comparison to local currency, they basically push out all of the locals because the price goes up to essentially make more money from the foreigners, and then nobody can afford to live there who's lived there their whole life. Maybe their families lived there their whole life. This doesn't seem generally like something that's going to work out really well, especially considering a lot of these people care about the Bitcoin technology and being a Bitcoiner, as opposed to like actual local people and the local economy and things that's going to matter to them.
A lot of you just wanting to participate in what's happening here, but not being able to travel right now. So we want to bring that to you. And we're going to bring in a lot of interesting guests that are expats who have moved to El Salvador, or Salvadorans that have lived here all their life, that can share helpful tips about what it's like to live in El Salvador. And that's just going to be the main focus of being able to make this open for everybody, what is happening here in El Salvador. So we hope that you'll subscribe to the channel, that you'll follow us, you'll tell your friends about what's happening here. Hopefully we'll be able to meet you all someday when you make your own journey to El Salvador. But until then,
I don't think
enjoy the show.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be making the move, to be honest. Then again, I'm not a Bitcoiner, so... Oh no, don't play it again. Don't do it again. Love it. Gonna be big. Good news on you. Not gonna be big. 300 views 4 months ago. I don't think it's going to be very big. They're here to explore El Salvador's Bitcoin adoption. You'll hear all about the lives of the people who have made Bitcoin in El Salvador their passion. So it seems like their thing is just interviews with people. Like, what is money? Venture down the Bitcoin rabbit hole. Nikki and James sold everything, moved to El Salvador in February 2022, and created their own channel.
We did research and we learned about Bitcoin Beach, and when we came, being part of Bitcoin Beach was like the shrine that you go and visit. And
You see what I mean about it being like a cult? Dude's wearing a pin, a Bitcoin pin, talking about Bitcoin Beach being a shrine. It's just obviously not for me, is it? This is just wild in every sense of the word wild. I don't think anybody would say the adoption of Bitcoin for El Salvador has been good. I'm fairly sure all economists widely criticize this as essentially being a gamble with your entire country. Oh yeah, we're going to adopt Bitcoin. Fucking Valve, a company, a very rich company, tried to adopt Bitcoin for payment processing, as did many other companies in the West. And guess what? They all found the same problems. It's just not feasible to do. Because unless you're taking in Bitcoin and then selling it immediately, so let's say you want to buy a game on Steam, somebody buys Bitcoin, they transfer the Bitcoin to Steam for the purchase, to Valve for the purchase on Steam, then Valve has that Bitcoin, and then price goes down, and they lose money on that transaction because they still have to pay the percentage, 70% or whatever it is, to the company who made that game, and then they keep 30 or whatever it is nowadays on Steam, which means they have to sell the money immediately, because if they just hold it and then Bitcoin goes down, even if it's a week holding it, a month holding it, we've seen how volatile that is, then they lose money on transactions, and large businesses are not going to do that, let alone an entire fucking country. It just seems like an awful idea. But yeah, if they're going there and just giving money to locals and not, raising prices and things like that and making it untenable for them to live there, fine, I guess, live your best life. But this just seems like another doomed to fail, just weird shit. But that's crypto, baby. See you next time. Peace out.